So we're almost there. I say I know there's a lot of people from the City Council here, and I'm not saying it just because you're here, but we've had an incredibly good relationship with lots of the departments at the City. The Economic Development Department especially has supported and listened and helped us develop our ideas over the last few years, and they continue to do so, which is great. There's lots of council bashing I know goes on, but there is, in my experience, a great will to support enterprises like ourselves who are reaching out and touching the new businesses and developing those new businesses. And again, the time could never be more right for public and private organisations to work far better together. So I think in summary, I'd encourage people to be ambitious. We've been ambitious, and I think we're still ambitious. And in the next few years, we can see not just 140 people working here, but maybe 240 people. And I think as a city, if we do become more confident, and we do, by being ambitious, inspire the people around us, we can be a world-class city, and we can achieve on the world stage. So thank you for listening this morning, and good luck. Cheers. Cheers.
Well, thank you, Craig, for sharing your journey for the last 2 decades and the exciting plans for the future. I should have mentioned at the beginning that we're not taking questions during the sessions, but if you want to text questions, comments, issues that you think have been raised, then the text number 0750 782 5483 will be up on the screen at different points. Please text us your comments. We'll collect those together and they'll inform our debate later on. I'm going to hand over now to my colleague Graham Chapman, Deputy Leader of the Council, and John Yarham, the Director of Economic Innovation and Employment, who are going to talk to us about the growth strategy.
I'm going to try and be as concise as I can. The growth strategy is about 3 things. Eponymously, it's about growth, as you'd expect it to be. It's about infrastructure, and it's about the theme of the day, is collaboration between public and private sector in this particular instance. Need to define what we mean by growth, or what we're trying to mean by growth. It is sustainable growth, but it's also socially sustainable growth. You can have socially unsustainable growth, and you can have environmentally unsustainable growth. And in the end, by definition, they're not sustainable. And then why growth? I mean, it is worth asking why growth, because there are some people who ask why growth. Growth because the economy is flatlining. Growth because the predictions for the economy to grow spontaneously are being put further and further back. We believe in Plan B. I've got to say that categorically. We believe in Plan B, and we believe we need one, and therefore we're trying to create one locally. One of the few councils in this country that try to do that in a systematic way. But also why growth? Because, and this is a sobering thought, things are potentially going to get worse for the city. There are going to be hundreds, in fact millions of pounds taken out of the city's economy as a result of tax changes, changes to the benefit system, for many people who are working, the working poor, who are going to be losing quite substantial amounts of money. And that's going to have an impact on the economy. There have also been a dismantling of the regional support systems. And the substitution we've got is not adequate. So again, we have got to do something for ourselves. We've also got to do something for ourselves because while there are going to be problems for places outside the southeast, I believe there's a reinforcement of the economy of the southeast through a lot of fiscal measures that have been going on, but also just because a lot of the ballast that has prevented the imbalance getting worse have been taken away. So again, we've got to do something for ourselves. And the principles we are trying to use is some degree of public sector intervention. We believe in public sector intervention. I'll explain why later. But also, another not very trendy thing, we do believe we need to pick winners. You can't pick winners in terms of firms. You never know who is going to succeed and who isn't. And it's a pointless exercise. But you can try and pick winners in terms of sectors. And so we will be looking at specific sectors. What I also want to mention is what the council wants to concentrate on, which I think is our right and proper role. And our right and proper role is infrastructure. I'm a great believer that you've got to get the infrastructure right to allow the private sector to develop. And so we will be concentrating on transport. Why transport? Because actually we do it very well. And it creates jobs, and it creates a lot of manual jobs. And manual jobs are quite important to us, especially some of us who represent the outer estates. Why we will be concentrating on energy. Why energy? Because energy costs are going up, and because we need to start supplying our own local energy as much as possible. Some of you will not realise that we are the most energy self-sufficient city in the country at about, depends how you calculate it, between about 5 and 10%, something like that. But that is pathetic when you compare us with the European competitors. Nevertheless, that is something we will be concentrating on and expanding. IT, well, I don't need to say why IT. You've had it all morning, why IT. And then, probably most important of all, where we are the least competitive, is indigenous skills. Not extraneous skills, we get a lot of those coming from the university, indigenous skills. And this is where we are going to have to compete both nationally and internationally. So I now want to move on to the last bit, is the partnership. I spend time reading the Daily Telegraph blogs. It's always interesting to know how the other side are thinking. And it is interesting that a huge amount of energy is spent on denigrating and deriding the public sector and public sector workers. And my view is that a decent economy cannot work without a decent infrastructure and decent public sector support. The public sector provides, until recently, roads. It provides, it cleans the streets, it manages the sewers, it educates children, it cares for the elderly, it provides things even like Splendour. I don't think Splendour would have happened without the public sector. The ice stadium wouldn't have happened without the public sector. It has a proper role. It does not have a role of crowding out the private sector, has a role of supporting the private sector. And when I look at the international competition, it is frightening. That first video was extremely interesting. I've just come back from India, and I tell you the number of colleges which are springing up all over the place, educating their children in a way, and they will be concentrating far more than a lot of our children, because they appreciate education a lot more. It is frightening, and you look at the competition. But I'd also say where they do fall down is outside these brand new colleges, the sewage is awful, the roads are awful, there's a whole lot of public sector infrastructure that doesn't work. There's a level of corruption in some places, not all places, and it's happening in a lot of the brick economies. And we've got to look at what our opportunities are, and our opportunities are to do with, going back to my first point, sustainable growth, sustainable partnership, and a sort of civilized approach where we're actually high skilled and the private sector is supported by decent public sector infrastructure, which in turn has to be paid for. So it's that collaboration that we're trying to get for Nottingham, and that is the view that we're trying to promote. And I'd also say there is this opportunity at the moment, because I also think that a lot of the brick economies, they're going to be subject not only to the fact that they haven't invested in public sector infrastructure, which will hold them back, but they haven't, that there is inflation beginning. Right, there are opportunities for us to take advantage of that, but our big weakness is skills. If I ask anything, it's skills, and it's skills related to the particular sectors that need those skills, and it's the indigenous skills. That, if anything, is my message for the morning, and I hope will be a major part of our growth strategy. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Okay. Morning, everyone. I'm John Yarham from the City Council. You've heard from Graham in terms of the macroeconomic position and some of the factors behind our intention to launch this growth plan for Nottingham. I think the important factor to note is this is not just about those macroeconomic factors. This is about a local and regional situation as well. Graham did allude to the fact that EMDA have gone. That has created a vacuum that we have to fill. We also have an opportunity in relation to the city deal process, so the conversation with government about the freedoms and powers that we can have at a local level. And all of those different factors combine to make this a very important point to really start to open up the dialogue within Nottingham about the areas that we need to focus on. And that's why at the start of February we launched a consultation exercise regarding the growth plan for Nottingham, with the idea being to, at the end of that consultation, have a united vision of the key areas that we need to focus on to really grow the economy of Nottingham and to create jobs for local people. It's got 7 priorities and 40 proposals. And those, we've heard already from the consultation responses, were potentially far too many. We know we've got to narrow those down, but we've put them out deliberately to provoke that consultation and engagement. When I say we, clearly I'm coming from Nottingham City Council, but this document has got to be owned by Nottingham, by the business community, by all of the stakeholders, whether they're public or private sector. And that's why this consultation process is a key element of the overall mission. It's not just about the outcome, it's actually about the dialogue and informing that. And that's why this morning is so important, and I'll come on to how that fits in to the growth plan later on. We start out with education, skills and training. Graham's just outlined why that's so important. I think there are 2 key factors that we have within education, skills and training. The first is the idea of quality, and the second is the idea of connectivity between skills provision and the needs of the economy. And it's those factors that we're really keen to promote. So the idea of German-style apprenticeships, longer term, is something that we're very keen to work with partners on. Transport, we've already heard in terms of the very good transport connectivity within Nottingham, the tram, the station redevelopment, the ring road, the A453 now as well. The next stage that we've got to reach is the connectivity into the rest of the country and beyond, and looking at the airport as well as our road and rail network. I think Craig said quite a lot about the digital work. The only message I would give this morning is in relation to digital connectivity. Yes, we had bad news. We are determined to plough on. We are still putting the ducting into the tram lines 2 and 3. We are working with a range of businesses to make this vision happen, and it will happen. And the ultraband work that we already invested in is already seeing dividends. So it's business as usual. We will continue with the mission. Business startups is something that is really critical. I mean, we heard from Craig in terms of the Magnify process, the proposal to link Confetti with South Nottingham. We can do so much more in terms of this area, and we know that property and finance are particular issues that we've got to tackle. We have come to invest in a proposal to create an investment fund for early stage businesses in Nottingham and Nottinghamshire through use of the pension fund. We're also launching a programme called the Growth 100 programme, which is quite a significant investment of support for local businesses. This is an area that we can do so much more to make ourselves a world-class city.